This video contains flashing images, consistent with the use of flashbulb photography from the very beginning. This is the filmed version of David Bowie's 1973 concert at the Hammersmith Apollo, directed by acclaimed documentary maker D.A. Pennebaker, best known for his intimate portrayal of Bob Dylan's 1965 British tour in Don't Look Back. It's a good concert, with Bowie and his band in peak form, but for me, what really stands out about this film is the audience. Pennebaker cuts to them regularly, depicting faces twisted in emotion and hands reaching out from the mass of the audience in search of connection. Brett Morgen's recent film Moon Age Daydream, like many other documentaries, uses a lot of this footage from the Pennebaker film and elsewhere to similarly focus on the experience of Bowie's contemporary fans, and on what certainly appears to be an extraordinary encounter, on their part at least. This particular footage reminds me, probably not coincidentally, of this early scene from Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey's The Wicked and the Divine, in which teenagers are brought to literal orgasm at the concert of a literal pop star god. It's not that what's going on here in the Pennebaker film is worship or sexual release, but it does suggest elements of both. Of course, there's also something questionable about a male director, editor and camera operators picking out these predominantly female fans having what seemed to be quite a personal moment. And certainly it feeds into the fetishization of so-called groupies that was so predominant at the time. But as personal as these moments are, they're occurring in the middle of a crowd, all of whom are having, essentially, the same experience. A paradox which is at the heart of fandom. And more importantly, this kind of fan experience is what the Ziggy Stardust album is based on. Pennebaker's film was released as The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, the same name as the album, suggesting that it's a companion piece, or maybe even a kind of culmination, given that it wasn't shown until 1979. But we need to be cautious about treating it as such. There's a crucial distinction between the roundly adored, ethereal-looking Bowie we see on stage here, and the one who wrote and recorded the Ziggy Stardust album 18 months previously. And that distinction is, to put it quite simply, fame. One of the uncanny things about Ziggy Stardust is the degree to which it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Remember that when Bowie was in the studio making the album, he was critically well regarded, but commercially struggling, in danger of becoming a one-hit wonder. To illustrate the depth of this, he just released an album that had Changes, Life on Mars and Oh You Pretty Things on it, and somehow, not one of them had troubled the charts in any meaningful way, at least not for him. The album itself, Hunky Dory, didn't even chart. It must have seemed like if beautifully crafted, intricate, clever songs like that wouldn't work, nothing would. Just imagine releasing Changes to relative indifference. How demoralizing would that be? So, he went back to basics. Back to a vaguely 1950s garage style of short, snappy guitar-led songs. But more importantly, back to rock and roll iconography. Back to the great stars of the 1950s, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, Elvis Presley, who seemed at that time, to the young David Jones at least, like visitors from another planet. Bowie literalizes this by casting himself as an alien rock star. At times over the years he'll flirt with giving Ziggy a full narrative story, but ultimately he sticks with the character as pure image and suggestion, an archetype more than a character, making himself look as otherworldly as possible, with an uneven haircut by Susie Fussy, and costumes from the cutting edge of fashion, many designed by Kansai Yamamoto. And somehow, it works. By making himself look like a star, he becomes one. This is often pointed to as the decisive moment, a performance of Starman on the BBC's Top of the Pops in July of 1972. It's become such a mythologized event that, frankly, there's no way all that can be true. The cultural fabric of Britain did not change overnight, thousands of youngsters did not run out of the house to buy guitars. But musicians like Ian McCulloch and Gary Newman did look back on this as a decisive moment in their lives, a bright spot in the drab greyness that was 1970s Britain. And it's not hard to see why. Even in 1972, at the beginning of glam rock, there was nobody around who looked quite like Bowie. But more importantly, there's also no sense that he's out of reach. After all, the song is about being contacted through a radio by a strange creature beyond your comprehension. It's a wonderfully potent metaphor for encountering a performer for the first time, the combination of direct address and universality. The message is being broadcast to everyone, but the fan in the song still feels it as a special communication, just for them. It's why so much of pop music revolves around the pronouns I and you. It's all about that relationship between performer and listener. And from that point of view, the real genius is this moment here.
I had to phone someone, so I picked on you. Hey, that's
Bowie implicates the audience directly. I picked on you. There's a sense here that you, the individual viewer, has been chosen, picked out of the crowd. Even though, just like in the song, he's pointing to every viewer. It's a classic fantasy in the connection between performer and audience. To be singled out as the special fan, the one who really gets it. Everyone wants to think that they are getting something special and unique out of the music, something all the people around them are missing. And Bowie knows this, and encourages it. He knows it because he's been there. After all, the words he's singing are from the perspective of the fan, not the singer. It's one fan to another, or rather, one fan to every other. This is the crucial point about the Ziggy Stardust album. Despite the title, it's not really about Ziggy, who, as I've already suggested, is a pretty ephemeral presence. The only songs directly about him are Ziggy Stardust, Lady Stardust, and, at a stretch, Hang On To Yourself. Rather, the album as a whole is about the audience, the kids who raise Ziggy up and pull him down. Remember, that's essentially what Bowie was when he made this album. A fan. He'd just been to America to have awkwardly enthusiastic encounters with Andy Warhol and the Velvet Underground, both of whose influences are, in different ways, all over the Ziggy album. There was an admiring song about Warhol on his previous album, along with one about Bob Dylan. Even Ziggy himself was a composite of the legendary Stardust Cowboy and a young Iggy Pop, among others. Artists who had inspired Bowie, both predecessors and contemporaries. The album itself isn't really about superstar fame and decadence. That comes with Bowie's next album. It's about trying to make it, trying desperately to make the jump from crowd to stage. Those songs that are about Ziggy are sung mostly in the third person, by a removed and unidentified narrator. It's the songs about wanting to become a star, wanting to get up on that stage, that are in the first person. I think the crucial song here is the relatively underrated Star.
Joni went to fight in Belfast. Ruby stayed at home to starve. I could make it all worthwhile as a rock and roll star. Reverend tried to change the nation. Sonny wants to turn the world, but he can tell you that he tried. I could make a transformation as a rock and roll star.
Here we've got a picture of mundane life in all its hardship, with possible escape routes, joining the army, social reform, brought up only to be contrasted against the true transformation of becoming a rock star. Not only does the struggle feed into the desire to transcend, there's also a sense that it could feed the music itself, hence making it all worthwhile, in much the manner that Bowie's almost decade-long journey to become a star himself fed into this album. It's got an unusual degree of social realism for Bowie in this period, managing to take in references to Nye Bevan, founding figure of the National Health Service, and the Northern Irish Troubles. The Ziggy Stardust album came out in the bloodiest year of the Troubles, the final recording session occurring only days after the still shocking events of Bloody Sunday. And so the fantasy of escape, of rising above it all, is all the more potent. Hence the use of Star over the credits of the film Good Vibrations, about the Northern Irish punk scene. And so maybe it's not surprising that there's a cynical element to the fantasy. The stardom fantasy isn't just motivated by a spiritual need to transcend or a desire for worship. It also arises out of financial need and simple boredom. I wouldn't go so far as to call this autobiographical, but it's not hard to hear these lines and think about how hard 25-year-old Bowie, father to an infant, had been working for almost a decade to achieve success and to escape his surroundings. Within a couple of years of recording these words, after that success arrived, he would leave Britain in terms of residence for the rest of his life. It's also not hard to hear something of the Buzzcocks' debut single Boredom and the beginnings of punk in this sentiment of all-encompassing apathy and frustration. Despite his glam trappings and the occasional derogatory name-check in something like Clash City Rockers, there's a definite Bowie influence in a lot of the upcoming punk generation. In fact, many of them were in the audience on the Ziggy tours. Indeed, a long-standing story, which is probably too good to check, has it that future Sex Pistols Steve Jones and Paul Cook stole equipment, possibly including Mick Ronson's guitar, from Bowie and company on the Ziggy tour. But Star, like the Ziggy album, isn't just about the desire for stardom, or the reality that births that desire. It also gives an insight into how one might achieve it. It's the Ziggy concept in miniature. How do you become a star? By acting like one. By pretending that you already are. Stardom is a fantasy, and so the performer needs to feed it through their own imagination. This isn't just the vehicle of stardom, it's the thing itself. The star can only be a star by being recognised as such. This is precisely what Bowie, in collaboration with his manager Tony DeFries, began to do after the release of the Ziggy album, paying for limos, cultivating an entourage, and generally giving himself the appearance of fame. He became a genuinely self-made rock star. But he could only do so because he understood from the outside how the mechanisms of fame worked. Within months of the release of the Ziggy album, he'd be producing albums and writing songs for some of his idols, Lou Reed, Iggy and the Stooges, Mott the Hoople. In only a year, he had elevated himself from a geeky fan into somebody who was not only their equal, but a more successful contemporary, able to extend a benevolent helping hand, as he would do for Iggy several times in the coming years. And he had done it by studying them, among others, and copying them. It was an incredible transformation, both breathtakingly cynical and charmingly romantic at the same time. The Bowie who made Ziggy Stardust isn't really the beloved idol gliding across the stage here. He's one of these people in the audience, dreaming of his shot. But there's a sense that, for now at least, the Bowie of the film, riding a wave of sudden fame almost unprecedented since the Beatles a decade before, still remembers what life was like before, as he looks out at the audience and sees himself. They reach out for connection, and he reaches back. You're not alone. Give me your hands. The man singing these words is connecting across time with the man who wrote them. He's also making a statement of solidarity with the audience. I've had my share. I'll help you with the pain. But this statement is also an acknowledgement that he has, in a sense, transcended them. He's up on the stage, up on Olympus, and the best he can do is extend a hand downwards for a moment of fleeting connection. He will continue to be an evangelical fan of various artists for the rest of his career, but the likes of the Pixies and Arcade Fire will be people he's championing from an elevated position, helping their careers, rather than just being another fan. He can never stand in an audience like this again. at least until his retirement and near anonymity in the late 2000s. I wonder if that's why he seems remarkably unperturbed by this stage invader at the very end of the concert. It's as if his old self has rushed to the stage to congratulate him for a moment. He's now something else, something beyond, and as a result, he can never make an album like Ziggy Stardust again. Then again, it's Bowie. He never wants to make the same album twice. Thanks for watching. I'm intending on doing more videos like this on specific Bowie albums in the future, as well as more general music criticism video essays, so do hit subscribe if that's something you'd be interested in, and let me know in the comments if there are particular albums you'd like me to take a look at. Until next time, goodbye friends.